Once again, y'all look dumb. Let me explain. Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda looks all but set. But here's the thing. A lot of you guys told me that Gervonta Davis should be sending Shakur a contract. Once again, I'm going to let you know in this video why this makes zero sense. Shakur Stevenson signed a 2-fight deal with Eddie Hearn and pretty much DAZN Riyadh season. A brand new piece of information came out that we pretty much knew, and that's that Shakur Stevenson should be facing William Zepeda, and I'll explain the should be in a second. Says Eddie Hearn has declared that Shakur Stevenson has a deal agreed with His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh to defend his WBC lightweight world title versus William Zepeda next, potentially on February 22nd, and it now depends on if William Zepeda will agree and take a deal and take the fight. This has been going on for a minute. Here's a previous piece of article or whatnot, and it says Shakur, William Zepeda verbally agree on match. So the stage has been set for a minute. If you listen to recent posts and look at the post and listen to what Shakur Stevenson is saying, he's saying stuff like, William Zepeda better not duck, don't duck me, yada, yada, yada. So the bottom line, it appears that Shakur has his next fight lined up. Regarding Gervonta Davis, a lot of you dweebs told me that Tank should be sending a contract to Shakur Stevenson. And for the longest, I've posed the same questions, which now your cover is blown. How was Gervonta going to send any type of contract or negotiations when Shakur signed with Eddie Hearn, basically signed a 2-fight deal with DAZN, pulled out of his scheduled fight on the Better Bivol card against Joe Cordina with injury, said he had a surgery and he's out for the remainder of the 2024 season, and now we find out what was already rumored, but now it's concrete, that the plan is to fight William Zepeda possibly on this card in February 2025. So again, I've been saying the same thing, and now I'm saying it again. I am the best in the business, and it's not even close. There's a lot of low quality information, bad audio, bad takes, ice cold takes. The video quality is bad. The thumbnails look cheap. There's a lot of content like that in boxing. You guys, if you want that style of content, this is not the channel for you. I strive to remain honest, have integrity, and if you're looking for clickbait and a bunch of, I could easily make a bunch of 1-2 minute videos and just say a bunch of nothing and lie to you guys to make views and get views, right? Say a bunch of poppycock and get people enraged or, rage bait content, all this type of stuff. But I choose to not do that because I don't think that's a good long-term plan. You lose all credibility. People start losing respect for you. And it just doesn't make sense. And it's not my character of who I am and what I want to do with my brand. But have at it. If that's what you want, enjoy. There's a lot of people talking about Tank this, Tank that. But now we find out none of this stuff makes sense. How, again, was Tank going to send any type of contract to a man like Shakur Stevenson who has been booked up? And at the Jaron Boots Ennis Karen Chukadasian fight, the rematch, Shakur was interviewed and they asked him, did Tank's team reach out? He says, yes, they reached out. We were in some type of talks and then we never heard anything back, which sounds pretty bizarre. Why were you in talks with them and then they reached out, but then it just went nowhere? Maybe it's because you signed to Eddie Hearn and DAZN and you were looking in a different direction and you got in bed with a whole different faction that has nothing to do with PBC. And it's funny because Shakur repeatedly in this interview and others, he acknowledges that Gervonta Davis is the A side. So what part of the game is that? Imagine, let's say Edgar Berlanga, right? Who's Shakur's boy. Edgar Berlanga wants to fight Canelo. Guess what? He got to go to PBC or wherever Canelo is at that given time if they're not on the same platform. That's how that works. When it's a black fighter that is in the A-side leverage position, people want to play dumb and act like they don't know how this stuff works. When Canelo, I repeat, when Canelo, if he's fighting Munguia doesn't get to say, oh, bring the fight to DAZN. Berlanga, who fights on DAZN with Eddie Hearn, doesn't get to say, oh, bring the fight to DAZN, and then the fight says Berlanga Canelo. None of that exists. You know why? Because Canelo's earned his stripes. He's the more popular fighter. He has the popular vote, and he's the A side. That's how that works. We know the biggest stars in boxing that have the numbers to boot and back it up are Canelo and Gervonta Davis. These are the faces of boxing, period, right? So Shakur has acknowledged this in many interviews. Why would you expect Tank to bend the knee to anything that Shakur wants? So I've said it, and I'm going to say it again. If you're a crackhead and you're looking for that rock, you're looking for crack. You don't go to Blockbuster Video, because why on earth would they have crack, right? So this is just common sense. You're a junkie. You go where the junkies go. You go to a trap house. You go to, the section of town where they serve in packs. That makes sense. You don't, if whatever you're looking for, like if you have, we'll use another example, right? Let's say you need to get a tire rotation, an oil change. You might look at Firestone, Jiffy Lube, anywhere, any auto body mechanic, you would get on Yelp and find someone. You wouldn't go to McDonald's expecting them to balance and rotate your tires and give you an oil change. Why would they do that? They sell 10 billion burgers a day. That's their forte. That's their lane. So the same should be said in boxing. If you're acknowledging a guy as the A side, which he clearly is, why would you sign to Eddie Hearn, who has no jurisdiction, no working relationship with Tank, has never hosted a big fight in conjunction with PBC where he was the lead promoter? Think about what I just said. The fights where Eddie Hearn has had any part in it that was a big PBC fight, he was never the lead promoter, right? Never the lead promoter, right? And I guess some people, to try to prove me wrong, they'll say, oh, but what about Joshua Ruiz? Ruiz was brand new to PBC, and that was a fluke because of Gerald Big Baby Miller pulled out, or he had to pull out because he failed the PED test. So to me, that doesn't really count because they were desperate. PBC is not going to hold you back from getting that type of money and payday, especially if you're new to the PBC infrastructure. So I'm talking about like Canelo and Berlanga. Eddie's not in charge of any of those fights. So why would Shakur think that signing with Eddie Hearn would get him to the promised land and get him a Tank fight? You know that makes no sense. So I told you, Shakur, when he becomes a free agent and leaves Top Rank, because it was looking like he was going to leave Top Rank, his next move will determine how serious he is about wanting to fight Tank next. And as far as I'm concerned, if you truly want to fight Tank next, that's not the move you make. Adding insult to injury, we now find out that Shakur has his next fight booked. So I ask you, if there's a content creator that was pushing that Tank should somehow send Shakur, who's injured and on the sideline right now we know he has his next fight lined up. Should Zepeda sign the contract and get past Tevin Farmer, how is that ever going to work? So once again, a lot of low quality content available in this boxing space that didn't make sense. Pushing narratives, bunch of spin doctors, and at the end of the day, you know this wasn't feasible. You know that, people were like, oh, why is Tank fighting Lamont Roach? Why didn't he send the contract to Shakur? The answer I've illustrated throughout this video. Checkmate.